Good morning. For another 9 minutes, it is morning still. Sunrise was beautiful this morning. It's great to start off with looking at the mountain and seeing the sunrise. Right, the sun does rise over there. Right, I'm just teasing. I want to welcome all of you to the Business and Leaders Luncheon. I'm Lynn Snodgrass, the CEO of the best doggone chamber in the Pacific Northwest. It was the best doggone chamber in the world, and then COVID hit, so I'm not sure if there's even any chambers out there besides ours. I want to welcome you, and I want to also, at this point in time, thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are very important, and they've been with us for years and loyal to this organization as well as to this particular event. Columbia Bank, we want to thank them. The Boeing Company, who've had a rough year with the ups and the downs of travel. Portland General Electric, their tough time is coming up. A little snow will hurt them. A year ago, we had that ice thing going on, too. We want to thank our presenting sponsors. I also want to thank our stakeholder sponsor, Gresham Barlow School District, and MetroEast Community Media, our media sponsor. Keith, thank you for being here today. I thank all of our partners. This is being recorded as a webinar, and it'll be available through the cable channels for MetroEast Community Media and through Chamber website. So if you missed any facts and you want to hear it again because you didn't hardly believe it, or you want to be encouraged by some of the information, it's available on the rebroadcast. I want to acknowledge our board members that are in attendance today, the chair of the Government Affairs Committee and our past president, Warner Allen. Warner, thank you for being here today. Warner of Warren Allen LLP. Our president-elect, Leslie Parker. Leslie Parker's right here. Thank you very much. She's with Health Benefits 411. Kayla Viramontes, the bold orange, sitting next to her. Kayla, she's one of our newer board members. And Steve Brown. Steve, thank you very much for being here today. He's with the Outlook Pamplin Media Group. I want to do a really quick shout out to 5 Gresham Chamber Leadership Academy graduates. Kayla is one and Leslie is another. David Dyke, David, thank you for being a graduate as well as Michael Patrick. Where's Michael? There we go. And Vicki Moen. There's Vicki. Vicki is also the director of our Work Ready program. So 5 graduates of the Leadership Academy are with us today. We also have some elected officials with us today. I want to recognize Council President Eddie Morales. Thank you for being here, Councilor. We really appreciate it. And Councilor Sue Piazza. Sue, hi, nice to see you. And in attendance today is also a new face to us. She's not as new as she was a couple of months ago, but I want to introduce so that all of you can recognize her, our new city manager, Nina Vetter. Nina, nice to see you. Thanks for being here today. She attended the Business Excellence Award, but we didn't have an opportunity to give her a shout out at that point in time. And we also have the deputy city manager, Corey Falls. Corey, good to see you again. Glad to have you here. We learned last month in the luncheon from Mayor Stovall that Corey is the police chief's boss. So maybe that's why he's here. You know, who knows? Is that right? Are you the boss? Okay, here we go. So I've got 5 bosses here. So Travis, I know what you're feeling. Okay, so I want you to know about 2 upcoming wonderful celebrations that we're going to have. The first is gold medal giving. Gold medal giving. When I say gold medal, what does that mean to you? Well, if you're Ryan Krauser, it means something different than if you are a baker and you're going to use that flour bag. So Ryan Krauser, he's a Gresham Barlow graduate. As you may or may not know, is a 2-time Olympic gold medal winner, and he holds the Olympic gold record for shot put. That's a big deal. Not only is he a gold medalist, but he owns the record for throwing the shot the furthest. We celebrated his first gold medal victory from Rio with a day-long celebration 4 years ago. We're upping the celebration this year to a full week with a twist. Ryan turns 29 on December 18th, and for those of you that have been through 29, approaching 30, it's the last birthday you'll ever want to celebrate. So we want to celebrate big with his 29th birthday. We are going to celebrate his birthday and his gold medals by collecting and then giving athletic equipment to kids. For an entire week, December 13th through the 18th, we'll be collecting athletic equipment for kids like golf balls, volleyball knee pads, basketballs, baseball mitts. You get the idea, anything. The collection spaces will be around town, and when Ryan is in town on the 20th, we're going to honor him by having him give the kids' equipment to some nonprofits in our community. He's going to disperse it then to the local, and they will disperse it to the local kids. We're calling the week-long event Gold Medal Giving. All Olympians start at a young age with a piece of equipment. So watch for the details. It's going to happen. It's coming up really soon. I'm locking down all of the locations where you can drop off the equipment. So save a little in your budget for that. Buy whatever's on the shelf and celebrate with us Ryan's 29th birthday, our gold medal champion. The second celebration is on your table. My idea of gentle, subtle hint. January is Adopt a Cop month. We're going to have a month-long celebration in January, and it's going to start at about January 9th, which is the National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. All businesses in the community, not just chamber members, but all businesses in the community are going to have the opportunity to adopt a cop. Officer Bob, Officer Laura, Officer Travis, Officer Tommy. We're going to have signs for you to put in your window, and then we're going to give you a toolkit of how you can celebrate for a whole month, celebrate and that particular police officer that you have adopted. We want 113 businesses to adopt our 113 police officers for the whole month. We'll provide you with the tools that you need. We'll provide you with a sign to put in your window or on your wall, and hopefully that when the police officers or the community walk around in our area, our whole area, not just downtown, our whole area, they'll feel that morale boost and the appreciation that we have for police officers. Watch for the launch of the program. It's coming soon. I'm going to give a shout out to All About Automotive. I mentioned this program to her not too long ago, and she's already signed up, and I don't have a clue how to keep track of it yet. I haven't figured that out. So where's Karen and Steve, All About Automotive? So thank you for signing up. I won't forget you. A for All About. It's got there already. You don't get to pick which officer you get to adopt. Sorry. But it's Adopt a Cop month starting in January. Now to our program. Gold medal and Adopt a Cop. Got it? Okay. Today we're going to hear from two key speakers regarding the state of public safety in the city of Gresham. We're going to hear facts through the lens of each of our speakers. There will be a time after they have made their two presentations for questions, and we'll try to get as many questions as possible answered, but we want to dismiss you at 1 o'clock. Our first speaker is new to his position in Gresham, but not new as a public safety officer. He is our new police chief, Travis Gullberg. Gullberg or Goldberg? Gullberg, like C. Gullberg? Okay. And following his presentation will be Sergeant Tommy Walker, who is the president of the Police Officers Association. So, Police Chief, would you like to come up, please, and come to the podium and give 10, 15, 20 minutes, about as long as the last time you gave me a ticket, to stand by my car and tell me how naughty it was that I was going 8 miles over the speed limit. No, I'm just kidding. That's great. You jumped up there really good. Was that part of officer training? Okay. So please welcome our police chief, Travis Gullberg. Good to have you here. You go.
It's funny because Lynn and I first met, I think it was the first time I met you, Lynn, was at the executive board meeting, right, for the chamber, and she heard me speak, I think what she recognized was my passion for public safety, but also my passion for community engagement and my passion for taking care of our public safety officials. So I'm grateful to be sharing the stage with Tommy, and we discussed about what this may look like. And the one thing that kept coming back to both of us is that while sometimes we may travel in different lanes, we are truly on the same path, and that is to make sure that we're focused on doing what's right for the community. And so I'm thankful to be here this morning with you all. And it is just got 1 minute left before noon, as you pointed out. It's what I want to talk about a little bit about what we are experiencing in law enforcement and what our staff are experiencing, what our community is experiencing, and then where do we go next. And then when Tommy has an opportunity to kind of talk about what, from his lens, as Lynn talked about, then we can maybe have an opportunity to engage more in just a conversation. Because quite frankly, I don't like speeches. You may not even think that this is a possibility, but I grew up not very good with public speaking and had to work on it a lot. And I'm a lot more comfortable now that I'm forced to do it. But I enjoy conversations more than just giving speeches, because I know that there's a lot of community concerns out there. There's a lot you want to know about what's going on, but you want to know what's going on in the police department. And if I just sit up here and speak all day, you don't get your questions answered and maybe feel better about your understanding of what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in our community. So it's no secret that violence is on the rise. And communities throughout the nation are facing this. Actually, my boss shared with me just this week some stats that I think we're all seeing, and maybe I'll just give them just so it just highlights what we're experiencing. But as you know, and this is these are national statistical information, right? Homicides are in 2020 rose 30%. In light of, unfortunately, with staffing, our retirements and resignations in law enforcement rose at the same time. And you all know, because you've seen it on the news, some of you maybe even lived it or experienced it, that shootings are on the rise, gun violence is on the rise, but what's important, and I want you to take away, is that violence is more than just gun violence. Violence takes a lot of forms. So what else we're seeing that's on the rise, unfortunately, is domestic violence, child abuse, vulnerable populations, hate crimes. While overall we're seeing a tendency in the numbers of overall crime to be going down, those, unfortunately, violence is on the rise, and so communities are impacted by this, and we recognize that the most underserved, and we know from our own East County experience, East County is underserved, that's impacting those that are from poverty, that are minority groups, and that's not okay. And we needed to be better about that. So what I always start my conversations with is it's okay to recognize and admit to what the wrongs we did in the past. And that's as a community, as a society, and quite frankly, as law enforcement officials. I've been in law enforcement for 25 years now. Normally there's a little bit of a bio, so I'll give that. As you may or may not know, I am a hometown kid. I grew up here in Gresham. I went to Centennial High School, went to Mount Hood Community College. My dad is an alumnus and former board member of the Mount Hood Community College. I'm quite proud of my roots here, and I have experienced what you've all experienced about the needs that Gresham has. And so we want to make sure that we are focusing on doing the right thing for our communities, and our communities of color, our communities that are underserved. And what I always start my conversations with is, if you were to ask me, yes, George Floyd was murdered, and that is not okay for me. And the officers that didn't intercede in that, I condemn their actions. That said, those were important conversations to have around, and they led to reform conversations, conversations about how law enforcement can be better. Unfortunately, what we forgot along the way is, how do we take care of our members? Because at the end of the day, you all know, because we've done the surveying, right, and we've gotten the information back, public safety is crucial to a thriving community. And if we don't take care of our members, our people that do that work, how do we get the work done that the community needs to do? How do we make the community safer? Because that's the important part, right? It's not about me. Tommy will get up here and speak. It's not about Tommy. It's not about our city officials, electeds, leaders, although they're an important part of it. It's about the community. And so what happened is we lost sight of that. And so what we're seeing now, unfortunately, in this storm that we're all facing, in light of violence rising and community issues that are of the most concern is that we have staff leaving at too high a rate of number. Our resignations are up, our retirements are up, where we used to see people stay longer and serve longer because they were committed to public safety, and they are. They've now decided that it doesn't fit them or it doesn't fit their family, and that's unfortunate. So we lost sight of that. We lost that balance of how we can address community concerns and be better about the work we do and take care of our members at the same time. So unfortunately, yes, your City of Gresham Police Department is facing staffing shortages. Some like we've not seen in what I've been told and kind of the numbers I've looked at since the 70s. Decades, right? We normally face anywhere, and this is true for any police department in the nation, around a 3 to 5% vacancy rate. Very common, whether that's just because you can't keep up with the hiring processes, because the academy process is slow. Yes, it is true. It takes us 12 to 18 months to get a new hire, once they're hired, out on their own, providing services to the community. There's a lot of factors that go into that, a lot of standards that can't be changed. We are looking at a multitude of ways and working with not only the local leadership, but the state leadership on how we might address those issues and streamline those processes. But the reality remains right now that we can't get people hired and on the streets on their own and serving the public as fast as they're going out the door, and that's causing a problem, frankly. So what I'm encouraged about and optimistic about is that everybody's recognizing that. We're recognizing that there's community needs, especially around violence and gun violence, and then there's needs to be supporting our staff to ensure that we're doing the things around recruiting, retention, hiring processes, so that we make sure that we fill these gaps. So where we were at about 3 to 5% vacancy rates on any normal year, unfortunately, yes, right now we're facing about 10% or so. We will likely see an increase in that before we figure out how to get people hired and through the processes quickly enough to make sure that we don't have these gaps. That said, again, what I'm optimistic about and very excited about is that we are working with our city leadership, our elected officials, to figure out ways to improve those processes and to ensure that we're recruiting and retaining our most important employees. So we could go into a lot of that. I think maybe Tommy can talk a little bit about that, and then we can fill in some questions. Some of that work is just in the process as we speak, and I'll admit, I know that it's not always easy to admit, but government is slow. It's not always easy, and fast to get things done. But what I do know and what I feel very confident is that I'm supported as a leader in my agency by my leadership, by my elected officials, because they care about public safety. And they do support the police department. Figuring out the details and how we can get it all done takes time. And unfortunately, we don't have that. But then again, there's a greater system need here and a greater focus that we need to do to figure out how we can move forward faster. And that's not all on them. That's even at the state level. So again, I'm gonna kind of stop there, Lynn, I think, and offer an opportunity for Tommy to talk, and then I'd like more of a conversation and an ability for us to all have a conversation, ask questions and stuff. Is that okay with you? Okay. And I know he's kind of got to go too, a little bit. So come on up and.
What did you say?
He's a little bit in a rush.
Okay. Oh, he's got to go. You don't mean got to go. You mean got to go. Okay, got it. Okay, got it. Sergeant, why don't you come on over here? I've got 2 housekeeping details. Nobody mentioned that there are drug-free brownies over there against the wall. I don't know why they didn't mention that, but there are brownies over there, so dessert is still being served. And Samantha would like me to let you know that there is a part missing, and we're waiting for a part so that the heater in this building could be done. But she's assured me it's not on one of the 562 boats in San Diego or Longboat. So anyway, so she wanted to express that to you, knowing that they recognize it's a little chilly out here. All right, are you ready to go? Ready to go. Did you get that? Okay. Sergeant, come on up. Sergeant Walker.
thank you, Chief. You took a lot of my talking points. Before I go into the doom and gloom of the situation, my grandfather would always say, if you're going to get up and speak to a bunch of people, you should either do a joke or a magic trick or entertain them somehow. And I said, well, that's easy because I'm a public servant and I'm going to make your tax dollars disappear. So there you go. So basically, to kind of continue on with what Chief Gullberg was saying, first and foremost, I want to thank Chief Gullberg for being here today and all of you. We are very fortunate to have him. My relationship with the Chief is somewhat unique because he and I got to know each other last summer, the summer before last, during months and months and months of civil unrest in downtown Portland. And so I got to work with him and view his leadership, and we're very fortunate to have him. So that being said, as far as what we're dealing with right now, and I feel for the city leadership at this point, because when Nina got here and when Travis got here, and as Corey stepped into his new position, I think that we can recognize that we stepped into some difficult times. The city of Gresham, I believe, in my opinion, has been historically underfunded in terms of its police department. Right now, we have approximately 113 officers. We actually had one just give an exit interview today. He's leaving. He's going to Cowlitz County. And then I just was informed that one of our crime scene technicians has officially resigned, and she'll be going to the city of Eugene. Right now, that leaves us with two crime scene techs. We are at either 113 or 112 police officers. As of right now, with our population, I believe that we're going to be dipping down soon between less than one police officer per 1,000. An organization of this size, in a city this size, I would like to see at some point at least have us catch up to the national average of 2 per 1,000, which would mean that we would have to double our staffing. And while I recognize these things are expensive and it doesn't happen overnight, this is something that we have to look at moving forward, and we have to come up with some sort of idea as to how we're going to be able to pull this off. As of January 1st, as a lot of you are aware, we're going to be losing our neighborhood enforcement team. This is a team that goes out and they deal with a lot of the houselessness issues. They offer resources to members of our community that are experiencing houselessness, mental illness, and they meet them where they're at out in the community. We're going to be losing that. We're going to be losing our transit division. We're pulling those resources back. Obviously, these are the men and women that go out and they deal with the safety issues that are on the TriMet line and the bus lines. Eventually, it could come down to it, if this continues to get worse, that we might be pulling school resource officers from our schools. That's not good. And then we'll be dissolving our traffic team. We will still be responding to things like, if it's a fatality crash, we do have certified investigators that will go out and that will do all the follow-up and that will actually conduct those investigations. But it is going to be dissolved. Crashes are going to go up. The livability issues that we deal with on a regular basis, those things are going to be changing. There are going to be times where people call the police and we're not going to be able to send people. And so there's going to be things are going to look a little bit different for a while we try to figure out how we deal with this problem. There is no particular person that, or situation or anything else where we can, point at it and say, hey, this is the problem or this is the fault of whoever. It's just we've been heading in this direction for quite some time. And unfortunately, with a global pandemic, civil unrest, anti-police rhetoric, instead of cruising at this cliffside at 30 miles an hour, we hit the accelerator and now we're going at about 70. And that's just kind of where we are.
I can attest that's too fast for this area.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Yep. So another thing too, especially, and I'll go back and I'll talk about the school resource program, school resource officer program. There's been some coverage in the media about, one particular school resource officer from the Gresham School District. And there's kind of been some back and forth as to whether this officer stays or goes or whether we ditch the program or, One thing that I would like to tell people, especially parents, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away. We have to have school resource officers in schools. We've seen it across the country. If we have, heaven forbid, an active shooter situation, which we actually had in Reynolds a few years back, we need to have people who are there who stand ready to go and deal with that violence and stop it at all costs. So it is very, very important that we keep our SROs and that we support our SROs in the schools. As far as the actual situation itself, unfortunately, I can't go into too great a detail about it, but this officer, who is being slammed in the media right now, has a flawless reputation, a good record. He's highly educated, sensitive, really good with the students, and he's who you would want in the schools. That's pretty much all I have at this particular point in time. Chief, if you want to come back up here, and if you have questions, we'd be more than happy to answer. And he can give you his perspective, I can give you my perspective, but that's pretty much all I have at this point.
For those of us that are handicapped in math, 2 per 1,000, is it like about 256 police officers is the national average, and we have 113. Is that about right?
Yes, roughly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know none of you are going to admit that you're as bad at math as I am, but that's what it is, 256. Before we start the questions, and we are going to answer as many of your questions as we have, could you explain a little bit more in detail, either one of you, the homeless individual is not that we have in Kevin, that's doing a phenomenal job with our homelessness. He does it by himself. He's not a police officer. However, he has backup to do that. Could you explain how that process works? And that's one of the special enforcement or the teams that will be shrunk. Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Sergeant.
Sure. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Kevin Dahlgren. Anybody? Okay. I would say most of you guys are business owners. You've probably spoken to him at one point or another. So what this team does, the neighborhood enforcement team, is they work with Mr. Dahlgren, and they go out, and like I said, they're contacting folks in the community, and they meet them where they are. Depending upon the circumstances, though, however, there are times where it's not necessarily safe for Kevin to go into a situation by himself. If he's going to go in and be contacting folks in a large camp somewhere off the Springwater Trail, probably not a good idea. You have, and I can't say that they're all this way, but you do have individuals that are living this lifestyle, and they do it for a reason. They want to live off the grid. They don't want to have contact with the police, or they don't want to have contact, with society in general. Some of them have significant mental health issues. Some of them are felons. Some of them are drug affected. Some of them are all the above. So it's very important that we have a skilled group of officers that are familiar with the city ordinances and with the laws, et cetera, who are able to go out and actually contact these folks and be able to apply the laws appropriately. And so that's why Mr. Dahlgren is there, and that's why our police officers are there to work with him and assist him when he needs it. We also do this too with our mental health team, which actually I'm in charge of right now. It's a police sergeant, 2 officers, and 2 mental health clinicians. They're master's level clinicians that go out and we meet people in crisis. And so that is potentially another thing, if the staffing crisis continues, that we'll be losing. But to kind of expand on that, like I said, as far as the mental health team is concerned, it's not always appropriate to have a police officer go out and contact an individual in mental health crisis. However, if that person is acting out violently, we can go in, we can make the situation safe, and then we can introduce a civilian clinician to go in there and offer resources, maybe place them on a director's hold or something like that, and get them to the hospital. So that's kind of the unique roles that we play.
Okay, Sergeant, that's great. 2 more clarifications. Abandoned vehicles,
Yes.
the campers that we have an ordinance that won't allow a regular vehicle camper to be out on the street longer than 24 hours. Kevin can't deal with that legally, is that correct?
That is correct. And so we do have other resources like code enforcement and that sort of thing. However, if there's people inside the vehicles, if they're occupied, we're going to have to contact those individuals and potentially get them out. The other thing, too, is that there's a recently established case law, that there's some legal loopholes that we kind of have to jump through, periodically, and we want to make sure that our officers and that our civilian staff are also familiar. So it's really good to have that cohesive team that's able to navigate through those waters.
Okay, last question, and then we'll go around. I'm sorry, do you want to answer something too?
Yeah, no, I did want to just add. So these are great questions about a specific function that we provide or service that we provide and how we might provide it, right? But what I want to make clear is that It's not our intent, or nor is it our goal to never do these services again. Okay, so what I'm saying is I've not been asked to cut these services. All right, what we're facing is a staffing shortage like we've never seen before. So currently we have 12, 13 vacancies. If we were fully staffed, we would still be doing these services that we're unfortunately having to pull back from. It is absolutely my intent and our intent to provide these services in the future. So the goal is that we don't have to do this for very long. The problem is, as I talked about, is our hiring processes, our recruiting and retention, the way we do the academy, all needs to be improved so that we don't have these gaps in services because we don't have the staffing to be able to do it. So I hope that makes it clear. Like we recognize the important work that the specialty teams do, and what the community has grown to love like about these services because of the community livability issues. We get that, and I'm fully supportive of that. It's just that what we're having to do right now in this time that we've not seen ever in my career is make adjustments to the way we do our policing. And that's twofold. One is to take care of our staff who are having to be pulled back into patrol because of the amount of overtime because of the low staffing. Because everything ultimately impacts patrol services, which is to you guys means those that go out and take your police calls, do your 911 calls, etc. Right? And when we are fully staffed or overstaffed, or at a staffing level we're confident with, we can do these other luxury type services. When we don't have the staffing, we can't do that. Now, to be very clear, yes, we've had budget cuts over the last couple of years. That impacts it as well. But nobody was laid off. All right. What happened is a matter of budget cuts over constraints over the last couple of years. Yes, we've had to reduce some positions where they were unfilled. Still, the reality is even where we're at right now, which is at, I think we're budgeted for 127, we're down 12 or 13 spots. So we have to literally pull back our staff for two reasons: to take care of our staff and lessen the impacts of overtime, and two, because we're focusing our efforts on preventing violent crimes, violence, especially around gun violence, child abuse, domestic violence. So I just want to make sure we kind of understand that we support that work is important. Unfortunately, we're just in a position right now where the staffing shortages are impacting our ability to do it.
Thank you, Chief. And my intention was not to blame you, but when you call somebody and you're expecting it, it's nice to know what the domino is and where the changes have been made. Yeah. Okay. Anybody have a question? Karen Johnston, who is the first one to adopt a cop in January. Karen, here you go. Stand up, please.
Oh, stand up.
Hi there. A couple questions I have is reducing those teams and putting those officers back on patrol. Are you afraid that that is going to cause more to quit or move elsewhere because they were doing something a little more specialized and now they're back to the old grind? And what are we doing, or what is happening for retention and recruitment?
Okay, you want me to go first? I'll go first. Go ahead. Yes, I am concerned. We all know that the job market is very competitive. You, as business owners, know that we're having trouble getting people back to work. And so the less you offer in terms of incentives for either recruiting or retention, and one of those is job quality, right? We come into the business at a fairly young adult age, and you're excited about the work, but then as you get a little older, you want to do different things and experience the world in different ways. And the more we limit that, it is of concern. What are we doing about retention? We are doing a lot, yet unfortunately, A lot of that is in the negotiation process, determining what we can and can't do within our budgets, within legal parameters. And so we can't just openly necessarily talk about all that we're trying to focus on. But what I'm confident in is that I'm supported by my leadership and the electeds about making sure that we are not only focusing on recruiting, which is really easy to do. By the way, you could probably see it every day. Amazon's offering sign-on bonuses because it's the holiday season. I hear that a fast food chain is offering, $12,000, $10,000 sign-on bonuses and $92,000 a year to be a manager of a store. We can't even necessarily compete with that, but we are trying to in many ways. So we've worked with the union to identify both recruiting and retention ideas and concepts that we all can get behind, and we presented that to leadership, and we're working on it now on how to figure out the best way to move forward. And some of it's really exciting, and some of it we just can't let out yet. That's Charlie.
Good. Another question? Oh. You're playing a good cop, bad cop pretty darn well. So
He was at the table with us, and we're having these conversations every day.
another question? Okay, Leslie, President-elect Leslie.
The officers moving are not losing their incentive pay.
Oh, yeah.
So that's important.
Oh, yeah, that's a
So,
good point.
Corey, it needs to be recorded. So, do you want to ask your question?
Just a reminder of what he reminded me of is another important. Again, the idea is we're doing everything we can, because oftentimes what you focus on is recruitment, right? And so right now everybody's all excited about. You saw Portland offering $25,000 sign-on bonuses, right? And everybody's excited about recruiting, but we forget, just like I talked about earlier, about how we're taking care of our staff, our current staff. So Tommy and I worked on many things together, and actually leadership as well, to figure out, how we retain our current employees. And so what Corey was reminding me is even though we're moving some of these team members from the specialty teams, if they had any kind of incentive pay or premium pay, they're not losing that. Here's an example. As Tommy mentioned, we're pulling back the traffic unit, which is an unfortunate thing, but it's what we have to do right now. Those members will not only keep their equipment, like their motors that are assigned to them, they'll be encouraged to do their work. That was one of the things I wanted to point out, Lynn, your conversation previously about the houseless work, is that what I'm committed to, and I know city leadership as well, is to try to do everything we can to mitigate livability issues, much in the same manner as we do with the specialty teams, knowing that we don't have the specialty teams. So what I'm asking is while we may have to experience this for a year or two, is to ask our team members that go back into the fold of patrol to try to connect still with either with our city departments, with our community groups, with our community associations, to say, how do we keep connected? How do we keep doing the work when we don't have, unfortunately, the specialty teams out there? So what Corey was reminding me of is we're trying to lessen the impact on the employees in every way we can, including their pay, if that makes sense. So.
Hi, my question is, if you can educate me a little bit about how the coordination goes, if any coordination, with the county. How is the county here to support the community, like your department?
Sure.
Do they play a role?
Go ahead. Yeah, go first.
So we definitely have mutual aid. Essentially with Portland and Multnomah County, we work really closely with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. They're in the same boat that we are in, though, however. And so I know I can tell you, I can say for sure, they have recruited, they have hired, they've sent people to the academy. Those people have come out of the academy and they've all washed out. They've either said, this is ridiculous, I don't want to do this. They've said, this is too dangerous. Or they've said, we don't have the support here and we're gone. So we just have a very unique situation where we work in Multnomah County in general. And so we definitely assist each other where we can. It's just staffing is just, not a lot of people want to be cops anymore. So,
I'll add a little bit to that because I'm thinking your question maybe is more broad than specifically to that. So we city leadership as well works with county leadership, and so at every level we're doing that, including law enforcement, public safety, as Tommy talked about in our relationship. So as an example, this weekend, as you guys know, this past weekend, there's a lot of flooding going on, right? And so my city manager reached out to me and said, and I'm unique because you may not know, but I just spent 23 years working for the sheriff's office before I came here. So I'm very connected in many ways. And so she said, do you have any contacts? Can we figure out, although it's happening in Fairview, it is impacting potentially families nearby that, almost into Gresham? And I said, absolutely. And we connected, we discussed, I got really a quick brief on where they're at, what they're doing. I think it even kind of helped a little bit because people were putting a little bit of pressure on people to respond who weren't. It brings up another part of the connecting pieces, which is the reason why that was flooding is the drainage district wasn't able to get to the equipment and repair or mitigate the issues going on, which was impacted by houseless camps and so encampment. So. And they were literally concerned over violence, apparently maybe even heard a gunshot. That is why it's still important that while we have to do some of this, and by the way, we're not the only agency having to face these staffing shortages and the rise in violence and the issues around houselessness. It's happening all over the nation. So the more we work together, the better we can leverage each other. But to Tommy's point, I just had a conversation with, I think they're 14 down, we're 12 down. So even if we wanted to join agencies, we'd be 26 down together. So we're not going to solve things that way, but we're going to solve, or what we're going to be able to do is leverage each other. And we're doing that around gun violence as well. There's more to come out about that and the initiatives we all have going around addressing violence and gun violence, but we are doing that, and we're at the table, we're having discussions, and we're going to leverage each other so that we can make sure we best serve the community.
Okay, another question over here.
You addressed this when Leslie asked you about connection between the county and the city, but could you just kind of educate me on, is there a common complaint with Gresham police officers leaving? Or are they, is there a commonality there besides the obvious, I guess?
Yeah, I think with any particular, there's definitely some common ground. I mean, all of us have our unique issues that we're working through in terms of working environment and everything else. You know, I mean, I'll just say it like it is. We have a district attorney who isn't a big fan of cops. That's not good. We have a lot of instances where we're putting, our work product forward, and these cases aren't being prosecuted, and I think the district attorney's office would essentially argue the same thing. It's, gosh, I don't have enough people to keep this up. However, when you catch the same car thief, 3 nights in a row, and you can't take him to jail, or it's a revolving door, it becomes problematic. And then in terms of the work environment in general, like I said, with a lot of the anti-police rhetoric, throughout the last couple of years, you have a lot of people that are just they get better job satisfaction because they have some more support from the community. So.
Gresham used to be high on all police officers' list as a community to come to work to or
Yes.
work for, work with partner. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you noticed any of that leveling out or going down, or is the morale, did our morale start higher and now it's just a notch down, or is it pretty much all across the board
Go
equal now?
ahead. It's down.
It's down. Okay. Dumb question.
Yeah, I mean,
guess.
and that's the thing too, and I think that the chief and I have a common goal is we're really doing the best that we can to encourage people to stay. We have great people that work in this organization.
We do.
They're talented, they're smart, we have historically hired good people, and it's historically been a family environment, and we want to keep that going. I think that it's the love for each other that keeps us here, but you do have a lot of people that are just and with the overtime issues and everything else, I mean, we have lives to live, we're not robots. And so they're able to just, they're discovering that they can go elsewhere and that they are highly desired.
Okay. Thank you, Sergeant. Another question?
Yeah, first I want to say thank you for your service. And I wanted to, listening to you talk, it sounds like, number one, we're in a big deficit, a big problem. We're half funded with our police officers. Mm-hmm. And there's no real good answer for what I'm hearing where it's going to change. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better for a couple years, which is really scary for me and my family living in the area. And I'm wondering, what can I do to help support you and change the rhetoric going forward so that we can get police officers in there, change this culture that we've created where kumbaya, let's all sing a song and put everybody in the corner and the bad people will disappear, and make things better.
I'll go first.
Go ahead. Yeah, please.
I'd love to.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've got a couple different answers, but one in particular. At some point, I think your city leadership is going to come to you and say, how do we answer sustainable long-term funding? Because that's ultimately the issue, and it's not just about public safety. It's really all the departments within the city, all the services that are important to our community are not funded well, and that's not a reflection of Nina. It's not a reflection of Corey. It's not a reflection of our current elected. It is a historical thing with Gresham, dating back to, unfortunately, decades. We need to solve that, because that's how we're going to solve the funding issue, and how we're going to be able to sustain having enough staff to do the things that you guys all want to have done for your community and come to expect and love about Gresham. The other thing is, and I think this is why Lynn invited me back, is because of my passion for taking care of our people. And again, I would say that should be reflected throughout the entire city. But my focus obviously is the police department. We got to find a way to get back. We have to figure out a way to heal and forgive and move forward. Again, reiterating that we have to recognize as public safety officials that things went bad for decades. And it's okay to say that we didn't do things always right, and there was harm. But that doesn't mean that we can't find a way forward. And I think Lynn was probably encouraged by me with this Adopt a Cop program that she's come up with, and other community members. That's the first step to healing. We can't lead that. I don't want to lead that. I don't want our department to lead that. And so I'm really excited and optimistic about if we can figure that out. And get back to where we're doing what the community expects, and we're connected and engaged with our community, that we will figure out a way forward. But remember, when it's voting day, we need funding. That's a reality, and the whole city needs funding.
Just as a reminder, and I don't have the exact number in my head, but I'm real darn close. The last time we did a public safety was on the ballot. I walked every single weekend for 5 weekends in a row, all the neighborhoods with my grandkids saying, please vote for this, please vote for this. It was the second of two levies or bonds, whatever, levies that were put forward. We lost that last one, I think it was 186 votes. Yeah. Really close. But when you think about it, if 92 people would have voted the other way, it would have passed. So it was within 90 people changing their mind. It was really close. And it seems to me that we had the momentum. It was trashed, or just terrible numbers, the previous one. We came a long way. It seems to me like we should have, I don't know, maybe the momentum. Anyway, okay, David, you have a question. Mr. Leadership Academy graduate, David.
Thanks, Lynn. Sergeant Walker, my question is really for you, and really builds on the question around sustainable finances. Has the police union kind of developed a point of view on what funding should look like in terms of sustainable funding for the city that would really be kind of benefit your members? And if so, what does that look like to you in terms of future funding?
Great question.
So it's kind of a tough one for me, because right now I am so hyper-focused on keeping people here that it's difficult for me to look that far into the future and say, 10 years from now, pie in the sky, I want X, Y, and Z, and this is what I want things to look like. It's difficult because right now people just keep dropping off. I think that the immediate solution, focus on retention. The second is get some sort of ballot measure going, so that we can pass some sort of public safety levy or bond. And then from there, because our facilities need to be upgraded. Even that's another thing too, is even if we bring on all these cops, we got nowhere to put them. The facility's not big enough. We don't have locker room space for these folks. And so, there's a lot that plays into it. But my honest answer when it's all said and done is I don't know. I just don't know. Because like I said, right now I'm very focused on trying to keep people in the building. One last thing too, and I just wanted to your comment really, really fast. Truth telling. And, you know, like I've worked extensively with the media over the years, you know, being a PIO and everything else. When something is getting broadcasted, it's that snippet that they're putting on that grabs your attention. I would encourage people to be curious and to look beyond the story and see what else is going on. And that's what's going to change this in the future moving forward.
Good. Gordon, no hunting story.
Okay, then I'm done. Question is, I mean, we're just talking about we can't keep the people we have, and we can't encourage fast enough to bring people in to replace them. So you don't have enough money. So we know there's a financial issue. But you're forced to live as hired employees under the rule of elected officials. And so would you say that the policy that you're forced to live with is making a noticeable impact on the reason people are leaving as police officers in Gresham? I mean, this room is full of Gresham residents and Gresham business owners that want you guys to have 256 people and enough lockers for them and enough cars and guns and little bows to give out to kids at schools and rides around in their police cars. We would love to see that. And if you're being forced to live with a policy that's getting our people to leave here, to me, that's the elephant in the room. They're leaving for some reason, and they don't want to come and work here, right? And if that's the case, is there a policy issue that seems to be coming back as people are leaving? This is what's happening and we have to live with, because we can do something about the policy. We vote, and we all know 10 other people that vote, and that's plenty to meet the 90 that Lynn just had. And so how is the policy impacting that, I guess, is the question.
You know, you'll be able to speak the way you want to speak, so step over there for a minute. No, in all honesty, I listen, first of all, I have the utmost respect for the men and women that do this job. I've spent, as you know, 25 years doing this work. And as Tommy spoke about earlier, me and him spent the whole summer of 2020 ensuring the safety and security of the Justice Center. We can recall getting egged and
Lit on fire.
Lit on fire. He literally got lit on fire. And so, you know, what I'll just say this: I, with all that experience and where I've come from, and I don't forget where I come from, but I know who I am now. I feel very optimistic and 100% supported about our future. We did a survey recently around, for lack of a better word, around the ARPA funds and what's a priority for the community and how to spend those funds. I mean, it was very clear that public safety matters to our community, and I know it matters to our leadership, and I know it matters to our elected officials. So there's no policy that, you know, specific policy that is impacting that. Yes, as I alluded to earlier, what has impacted it is, and I think this is where Lynn got motivated by me, and when I spoke about my passion about taking care of our members, is our members got forgotten. And I'm not saying just our members, public safety nationwide got forgotten. We had to take this critical journey, this critical look at what we did in terms of how we got to here in history. But that said, we need public safety officials, and we need to take care of them. I feel confident that is the goal. And when there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes, the problem is a lot of damage got done. So as much as we talk about reforming police and the damage that police caused, as much damage happened in a 2-year window that I don't know, and Tommy and I talk about this, if it's going to be recoverable that quickly. And then what's impacted by it is all of our other standards and procedures, like the hiring process and the academy I talked about, that impact that as to why we can't get back to staffing. But to your point, we got to make sure that we focus on those that are here, because you guys need them, and we need them. And so we need to work together, and we're doing that, and we need to be supported. And I will tell you, what I hear often is that there's a generation of police officers that don't feel loved and supported in many ways, and that's unfortunate. Whether it's true or not, as we talk about, and I talked about this with Councilor Morales, is everybody has their truth. And we talk about truths, right? And the importance of being heard. and respecting that truth, whether it is true or not. And so there are a generation of police officers that don't feel loved and supported by their leadership, by their electeds, by the community. And that's when I talk about, I don't know what that looks like. We can't lead that healing process, but that needs to happen. And it can happen right here in Gresham, and start with Gresham. And Lynn took this up, and I'm not sure where it's going and what it's about. I think it's a wonderful, great idea, because that will make a difference, I believe.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is, so I got to start off by saying, what good is a First Amendment right and protection if you can't use it? So I'm going to go ahead and exercise that. When you have elected officials that stand out in front of your shop and scream all cops are bastards and call you names and everything else, for a lot of our members, for certain people, that was the first interaction they had ever had with their bosses. And that has a pretty powerful impact. Rhetoric is bad, especially when it's negative. And so when you're dealing with that and you get involved in situations or potentially dangerous situations, you're not necessarily going to be willing to stick your neck out there for somebody who, berates you and tells you that you're garbage. So, I think that we all have a set of core values. Every human being does. Some are better than others. But if there are people out there that don't align with your core values and belief systems, you have to take that into account, and you have to research your elected officials. And I think that that's probably the most important thing that you can do.
I think another thing that is the truth, Chief, I absolutely believe you that our elected officials are supportive of you. It's a matter of priority. What's the highest priority? Is it parks? Is it houseless? Is it, what is the highest priority? You can be supportive of everything, just like business owners. We have to make decisions every day. Do I clean the bathroom so that my customers are happy, or do I count the cash, or do I pay my employee, sign the checks? There's decisions all day long that we make as business people, but it's a matter of priority and what do we need to get done. All of them are important, and all of them need support. So, Vicki, we have a question with Vicki, and then Michael.
Chief Gullberg, you mentioned that no one wants to be a cop right now. That's going to be an ongoing problem. What's happening to address that, and specifically with the academy?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, we're troubled by where we're at, right, and what we're having to respond to, and as we talk about, there's many things to do in law enforcement that are exciting about the job. But as we pull back from these things and aren't able to do it, it makes it less attractive. That said, I'm very optimistic about the next coming generation, because this has happened before. Maybe not as impactful, but we've experienced this. I've experienced this in my 25 years. We can get back there. What we just have to do is there are people that want to serve in their community. I guarantee you. So we've got to find, and that's the work that we're doing that's behind the scenes, right? We got to find the best way to recruit people and tell them that it's a noble job. It's an opportunity to serve your community. And we see that. We've got candidates. We don't have the volume that we used to see, but we've got to turn that narrative around. And I did want to jump in a little bit. I get, there's different perceptions of maybe what support looks like and who is supporting and not supporting. I actually do feel supported by the DA's office, the current DA. While we may not agree with all of the policies in which that have come out of his office, overarching, he supports public safety. And I think what we have to do is work on these narratives that sometimes get lost. And we can talk all day about narratives, right? But the bottom line, we need them, the community needs them, and so it's our job to make it exciting as an opportunity to work and serve your community. They're out there. And then in terms of the academy is just, it's part of the process for training And I know that there's a lot of work being done on how to improve that, both from a perspective of making us more progressive in the work we do, but also how do we streamline it so that we're not, we call it, unfortunately, and don't mean this in a bad way, another choke point. We have a bunch of choke points. Like backgroundings take a long time because you got to do a full background process. And then you send them to the academy and they got to go to 17 weeks of the academy. But with COVID, they're doing less academies like they used to do. And so that's another choke point. So the reality is, where it used to be kind of a standard, we can get them out in a year to year and a half on the road and serving the community on their own, it may now be 2 years or more. And that's a problem. But hopefully, it's because we're all talking about it, it's a focus for the legislator to figure that stuff out at the state level to improve those processes.
Michael?
Great. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Chief and Sergeant Walker. Michael Patrick here. So we all recognize it's a funding issue. This, as Gordon said, very well spoken. But community engagement is a concern of mine. The city put out a statement yesterday, and I appreciate this, that said it's clear that there's a need to create more opportunities for engagement, particularly the voices that are unheard, often too unheard. And then the question I have is, the next paragraph is, meetings are taking place with concerned community members and more comprehensive plans are being made. So could you raise your hand if you've been in a meeting of this community members concerning this question, that the meetings are being held? Who's been in one of those meetings? One kind of, 1, 2. There's 60 people in this room that would like to be involved in those conversations. And I would encourage the city leadership and who's involved with this to ask the community members in this room to be involved in those listening sessions and part of the solutions. Thank you.
That was an example of non-question. So there.
Well, actually,
very well
actually, Lynn, I do have a Hey.
There we go. Oh, he came to a question. I try to be the police on the police on questioning.
I have an answer to this too.
You have an answer to a non-question?
Yeah,
You're
because
good.
I think we're a little we might have got a little ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
We're absolutely. I am very much. I come from this frame of mind in my experience with the sheriff's office about community engagement and how all can be heard. And so to Mike's point, we are. I think we got ahead of ourselves a little bit. There's stuff that we haven't rolled out in total. And while we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes and trying to get to the work that needs to get done, there will be community meetings, Michael, and you will all be invited to that. In fact, what we're doing, and I don't know if this came out in that article or not, but we can certainly release it. We have contracted with the company, the police department, the city leadership has contracted with Barry Dunn Associates, and they're doing a comprehensive assessment of the police department operationally, command structure, community engagement, all that entire look. And out of that process, it hasn't started yet, there will be plenty of opportunity, Michael, to give your feedback, and we want it because it'll help tell us where we're at, where we need to get to, and how to get there.
And that's great. All of that's great, and I appreciate Michael probably first on the list, just like Karen was first on the Adopt a Cop. This is a funding issue. I hope that whoever you hire talks nothing but about funding, because we know what the problems are. We know, you can reorganize inside, but the funding issue is still the problem. You need to make a profit in a business. You got to figure out how to make that profit to make it go on. So I'm hoping that that's 90% of the conversation that you're engaged with. Sandra's got a question. One more question over here after Sandra.
Hello, and thank you for your service and all the work that you do. I do appreciate it. And I'm kind of changing the topic a little bit. I wanted to ask, what has been the real impact on the police and on our society from the law that was passed that decriminalized small possessions of drugs?
It's had a significant
Okay,
impact.
we just moved the hour to 2 o'clock.
Oh, gosh. Gonna need some water, and I won't take that meal to go. I'll actually, no, it's had a pretty significant impact, especially too with a lot of the street drugs that are out there right now. Fentanyl is killing people left and right. Methamphetamine and the type of methamphetamine that we're experiencing, that we're dealing with out on the street, is making people go bananas. And it's having, we contact people in meth psychosis on a daily basis. Those people are unpredictable, they're dangerous, they're running out in the middle of the street, they're taking their clothes off, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, they should be in bed. It's having a significant impact. And unfortunately, I can understand the idea behind what they were trying to do, because they were wanting to offer treatment to those folks who needed it. The problem with the state of Oregon is we cannot force people into treatment, okay? The other issue that we're dealing with, along the same lines, is that I am all for having some sort of treatment source, but it has to be available and it's got to be up and running before you just pull the cord and say, okay, here you go, guys. So it doesn't, in terms of the low-level quantities, should we be taking everybody in and out of jail for it? That's a discussion that we can have. But what I can tell you is that there's no backup plan. Right now, we're taking people to the hospital. Like, the ER doesn't have the capacity. They don't want to deal with these folks. Half the time we take them there and they just end up running out of the hospital and they're back out on the street and we're dealing with them again. So yes, it's had a negative impact, especially out here in East County.
Gentlemen, this is the last question we have time for.
Okay, I just got confused by something you said. First of all, thank you for your service and thank you for being here today. You mentioned the DA, you arrest somebody and they're released the next day and you're arresting them the next day.
Within hours.
Within hours. Okay, but then later you said you felt supported by the DA. I don't understand that.
So kind of two different sides of the coin there, right? So as a community, you may have some concerns or issues with the DA's policies. What the question was asked was, is that, and what I wanted to reference it about was, is that having an impact on whether people are staying in public safety? And what I'm saying to you is I'm not necessarily in agreement with all of the policies of the DA, and neither is the community, but I do feel like the DA, public safety is a priority, community safety is a priority for the DA. Figuring out all these other things, like the question that was just asked, you could ask this entire room and it's going to be 50-50, 60-40 on whether you agree it was a good idea to decriminalize small amounts or not. But what I feel like is that overall for the DA, community safety, public safety is important. Maybe not. We may not agree on all of the policies. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, stay up here for a minute because you're going to get a standing ovation in just a second. I'm assured. I'm going to change mics. Okay. Are you exhausted? A lot of information came from these two gentlemen. Could I hear a round of applause for both of them? Thank you. There you go. Thank you for that. And clarification, Chief, you gave me kudos probably 28 times. And I only deserved one of those because it was the board, Leslie, and my board members that came up with the Adopt a Cop program. I didn't want to interrupt you because I really liked hearing my name and how good it sounded over and over again. But you have a chamber board that supports you, and you have a chamber board that supports you too. And we want to be everything we can, just not only running our businesses and make it profitable for your families and to pay our taxes and pay your salaries, but also for your morale. So we hope that, and it wasn't me, it was our board. Don't go away. Columbia Bank, Portland General Electric, the Boeing Company, Gresham Barlow School District, MetroEast Community Media. They are our sponsors. They are responsible for the success that we had today. It's rebroadcasted if you want to see this again. You can check the website out or contact our office for that rebroadcasting time. There are so darn many activities and opportunities for us to connect with the community in December. The Gingerbread House Competition, Gresham Historic Museum, Gold Medal Giving, the Spirit of Christmas Tree Lighting, just to mention a few. So instead of attending a Business and Leaders Luncheon next month, this would be a hard act to follow anyway, I want you to take those 90 minutes and shop. I want you to participate in those activities, but shop, buy what's on the shelf. Don't worry, be creative. I said this last month, be creative. And hopefully, because not only is the part to this heater on one of those boats, my dishwasher is on one of those boats, your Christmas presents are on one of those boats. However, our shopkeepers, our businesses need to know that what they have, even though it may be little, is of use to you, so be creative and shop. All right. Thank you. Thank you both so much, and thank you, City, for coming. Corey and Nina, thank you very much for being here. Diane McKeel, a Board of Trustees from Mountain Community College, thank you for being here. And all of you for being brave enough to ask questions and take your time out today. What, Joan?
You can also have an opportunity to shop with a cop.
Shop with a cop.
Do they pay December?
I didn't know about that one.
That is so fun.
Okay. Well, the next one that stops me, I'll ask if he wants to go shopping with me. All right. You are dismissed. Thank you very much for coming today.